Welcome to Ask Fear and Greed, where we take your questions and do our very, very best to answer them. I'm Michael Thompson, and good afternoon, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Sean, we've got a great question today. It has come from Duncan, and it has come in via the website. So Duncan went along to fearandgreed.com.au and sent his question on through, and if you've got one, you should do the same thing. He says, love the show, find it a great way to keep on top of all the business news happening in Australia and around the globe. That's obviously not part of the question. Just wanted to include that because it makes me feel good. But
Thank you.
Duncan then says, why does the government policy always seem to be at loggerheads with productivity commission guidance? And this has just like your eyes lit up then when I said this, because it's got some meat to it, this question doesn't it?
Oh, and I've got views on it too. Duncan, thank you. I like this one. This is in my wheelhouse. So let's think about productivity. Improving productivity is a good thing. It's about getting more output for every unit of input. If you can do that, there's more stuff around the place to spread around, more love to give, and it's how living standards improve. The way I think about it, so think about what you have that your parents didn't have. The number of TVs in your house, multiple cars, access to good hairdressers, important to some of us. Then think about what you have and what you had growing up and what your kids have now. They have so much more than I had growing up. Productivity, that represents productivity and improves living standards, at least in terms of goods and services. That's how I think about it. Plenty involved in all that. Like technology is a big one. There wasn't the technology when I was a kid that there is today. And there certainly wasn't the technology when my parents were a kid that I had as a kid. Economies of scale matter. Trade is really important when it comes to economies of scale. Workforce skills, management practices, competitive pressures, the economic cycle. Now, Australia's productivity record hasn't been particularly good in recent years. We've heard plenty about that. The whole idea, if you improve productivity, you can help fight inflation. So that's kind of the background to Duncan's question. It brings me to the Productivity Commission. Now, interesting organisation, this bit of a beast. It was created in 1998, though its roots are much deeper. It goes back to something called the Industries Assistance Commission of 1974. The Productivity Commission officially is the Australian government's independent research and advisory body on economic, social and environmental issues. So it is an advisory body. The government can totally ignore it if it decides to, which comes back to Duncan's question. It's supposed to provide independent, high-quality advice. Let's hope so. It looks at all sorts of things. So in the last couple of years, this is a list of stuff it's looked at: philanthropy, early childhood education and care, water reform, Indigenous affairs, drought policy, carers, schools, maritime logistics, aged care, homelessness. Okay, very, very busy organisation. I reckon it's probably produced more pages of writing than many other bigger government departments. So that kind of leads to the question, what's the Productivity Commission's productivity like? You might say good. Sometimes you wonder. Like in March this year, it put out its 5-year productivity inquiry. Jim Chalmers called it a contribution to the national debate about lifting Australia's productivity performance. 1,000 pages long, 9 volumes. Who read it? Did you? I didn't. I don't think many people actually read it.
No, and it's not the kind of thing that you just print, would you?
No.
Like you'd want to check that before you sent it to your printer.
Well, if you go to the website, you can order a printed copy.
Really?
Mm-hmm. You can.
That sounds like the kind of thing you do to an enemy.
Yeah,
Just go.
That's exactly right. So this brings us back to Duncan's question, which is essentially, does the government listen and act on what the Productivity Commission says? Well, the Productivity Commission itself says in practice, more recommendations, and we're talking about thousands over the years, have been accepted than rejected. This is what the PC says itself. And even if they're not accepted, the Productivity Commission reckons they just become part of the debate. So that's kind of the best answer I can give. There are a few other hints that suggest it is worth it. It costs about $38 million a year, the Productivity Commission. Its annual report lists a bunch of stats about its performance. In the 2023 financial year, 70 federal members and senators referred to at least 42 different commission reports or inquiries, or to the Commission's role in the policy process. The Commission rated on average 480 media mentions a month, blah, blah, blah. Plenty there. I've got to say my experience, which is limited, is that the Productivity Commission is very well-meaning, full of very smart people, but the recommendations aren't always that practical. Many of the people doing the reports are academics or bureaucrats. I'm not sure many of them have actually run a business. And I think that's the main criticism of the Productivity Commission. So I suppose the answer, government policy isn't always at loggerheads with the PC, according to the Productivity Commission itself. In fact, more than half the recommendations have been accepted. Just the nature of what it does means it puts an argument out there and people debate it. So I suppose that is well worth it. Though there's a lot of paper wasted. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of words written, and I wonder how many people read them.
It does feel like it's an important body when you think about, if you think of it as an ideas factory.
Oh, I like that. It's an ideas, that's exactly what it is. It's an ideas factory.
Yeah, and it's an independent ideas factory. So it means in some cases those ideas don't actually necessarily need to be good.
No.
But at least they are there for people to consider, for people to debate, because it's better than just kind of doing the same thing we've always done.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried to read Productivity Commission reports. They're a slog.
Yeah, I say this. I'm full of praise for the Productivity Commission. I've never attempted to read one of their reports. I'm always happy to outsource that to you as the veteran journalist on the Fear and Greed team. Yes, I did laugh when you said that your experience was limited.
At least in reading Productivity Commission reports, it's a bit limited.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to pull you up on that one then. Goodness. What a question. What an answer. I reckon you've enjoyed diving deep into the Productivity Commission.
Because it was such does anyone listen to the Productivity Commission? That's what the question is. And that's kind of a really interesting, is it worth the $38 million we spend on it each year?
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's a big question. It's a great question. So thank you very much, Duncan, for sending it in. And thank you, Sean, for answering it.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Duncan.
Now, remember, if you've got something that you would like to know it can be about, well, I suppose you could ask another question about the Productivity Commission, but it could be about anything. Send it on through via LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or at fearandgreed.com.au. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is Ask Fear and Greed.